I happened to watch a video on YouTube on how to make a very basic Tuscan beef stew, and I figured I'd make my own version of it. Normally this would be made with a chuck roast, but I don't have chuck roast. I do have stewing beef, so that's what I used. The recipe had called for using kosher salt, which I don't have. I do have coarse salt, so that's what I used. The crushed garlic cloves are from our own garden. Still have some of that left. And finally, the freshly ground black pepper. Instead of olive oil, we happen to have avocado oil, so I used that instead. And we did not have any red wine, but I do have plenty of mead, which we made ourselves. This particular bottle, it was bottled in February of 2020, and so it is just shy of 3 years old. In the video I watched, they made this in a Dutch oven. I used a wok-style frying pan for mine. The first thing I did was make sure that the meat was patted dry, and then I covered it in the coarse salt, mixed that all up and set it aside. Forgot to take a picture, of course. And then it was time to heat the pan with the avocado oil and toss in the garlic. This is just to infuse the oil with garlic flavor. Do watch the garlic very closely while it is cooking. Stir it often because it browns very quickly. Once the garlic has been softened, remove it from the frying pan, set it aside for later, and begin browning the beef on all sides. It took me 3 batches to go through all of the meat. Once that is done, remove the meat from the frying pan and save it for later. Once the meat is done browning and you've set it aside, it's time to deglaze the pan with the liquid. And so here we add the entire bottle of mead. After adding the liquid, you can return the fried garlic cloves to the pan, and then the freshly ground pepper gets added. You then bring the liquid to a boil, and while you're doing that, just keep stirring it to deglaze the bottom. Continue to scrape the bottom of the pan while bringing the liquid up to a boil. Then add the meat back to the pan. Bring it to a boil, reduce the heat to simmer, put a lid on it, and let it continue to simmer for an hour. This is what ours looked like after it simmered covered for 1 hour. At this point, I took the lid off, brought it back to a boil, and then reduced it again to a simmer and let it simmer with the cover off for about 45 minutes. And this is what it looked like after 45 minutes. Just reduced it a little bit more after this, and that was it. It was done. And here we have our not quite Tuscan style beef stew on a bed of polenta. After almost 2 hours of braising, the meat was incredibly tender. In the video that I watched, they actually removed the meat at the end and reduced the liquid even further. That was completely unnecessary in our version of it. With the mead instead of red wine, I believe it was quite a bit sweeter than it would have been. It's supposed to be a dry red wine. And it was actually quite nice. I don't normally like sweet in my savory dishes, but it worked quite well.